Welcome back to College Hill Farm. Well, today we're going to be discussing what every homesteader needs to have for a first aid kit on their homestead. Safety and first aid is one of the most important things that you can do on your homestead to be prepared for dang near anything. A good example of something that you should do is go find a Red Cross community first aid class. First aid and CPR class, okay? Find them both. CPR is not what they show on TV. That's bullshit, okay? Right up front, the CPR you see on TV is bull sugar. That is not real CPR. It's fake, dramatized bull sugar. Don't buy that. You need a CPR class. Everybody should have a basic CPR class and a Red Cross community first aid. First aid is going to be very important on your homestead, and we're going to talk about the things that help you be prepared. Well, the first thing to be prepared is to take that community first aid class. If there's not one local for you, and there's no way you can get to one, Amazon sells a Red Cross community first aid and safety booklet. You need to get one. Okay, I think you can get a used one for $8 on Amazon and a brand new one for $14 or $15, $16, something like that. Okay, you can order it online. You can buy it on eBay. If you get one that's 2 or 3 years old, don't get one that's 10 or 12 years old that don't cover AEDs and that kind of thing. Okay, AEDs are important, and we'll talk about that when we get to that. But those things are important on your homestead to help you help your community. Okay? Help you help your community. Let's talk about it. Now, when we're talking about medical supplies, you can get all kinds of first aid supplies right at your local dollar store. Okay? Dollar Tree, the Dollar General. Let's start off with bandages. You need to have a multiple pack of just regular old Band-Aids. All different sizes. The little ones, the big ones, the fingertip Band-Aids. Okay? All different sizes of Band-Aids. Band-Aids are important. You need to buy gauze pads. They're 4 inches by 4 inches, and then there's some that's 1.5 by 1.5. Get 4 or 5 packets of each one of those so that you have gauze pads to use as a cover to keep stuff out of a wound. Buy the 3x3 bandages. You can buy those at the dollar store. It comes in a pack of 4 or 5 for a few dollars. Okay, you can buy those that way. You don't have to start all out buying everything you need in your first aid kit. You need to build up to it, but you need to have that basic homestead first aid kit. You need ace bandages, 2 or 3 of them. Okay, they're simple. They're a simple way with just a stick to splint something, to immobilize an arm or an ankle or something like that. With just a couple of sticks, you can do that and immobilize an ankle or an arm or a hand or a wrist with ace bandages without cutting off the circulation. Okay, so ace bandages are very important to have those. Some of that cling wrap like they use at the doctor's office, I can't remember the name of it right off the hand, but that stuff is really good, but it's not nearly as strong as that ace bandage, which is a lot wider, and you can wrap it multiple times and it builds up more and more and more pressure. So those are things you can get at the dollar store. A thermometer. Okay, just a simple digital thermometer. Or a simple rectal thermometer. You know, if you've got kids, you can't use that one in their mouth. You can get one of those temporal ones, but I found that every time we went to use one, it was out of batteries. It's good to have a good, just old water thermometer. One you shake down and then put it in your mouth, or put it into somewhere else and get a temperature. You need a thermometer. You need antiseptic. Antiseptic is very important. Good old-fashioned alcohol is wonderful. I like to buy the 90% alcohol because you can also turn that into a flame, into a lamp. Okay, 70% alcohol is just fine. It needs to be at least 75% in order to disinfect well. A bottle of Clorox. You need to have Clorox. Some Clorox wipes are wonderful, but good old-fashioned Clorox. Now, you think that you wipe off the surface with Clorox and you've killed all the bacteria on it. Clorox has to remain on that surface for 3 minutes in order to do its antiseptic. Okay? 3 minutes. So it takes Clorox a little while to do that. So you want to use alcohol if you can. Clorox, 90% alcohol is better, but you can even use 151 Bacardi or some Everclear. Those work just fine. As a matter of fact, Everclear you can use as a lamp. Okay, you can make a light out of it. I may show that in a future video, how to make an alcohol burner. Everclear has all kinds of benefits as well as anesthetic benefits. But alcohol is not a great anesthetic, but it is an anesthetic if there's nothing else available. Okay, there are other things that you also need in your medical kit. You need tape that will stick to hands, tape that will stick to skin. Okay, you need some of that medical tape. You need larger bandages, the bigger stuff. You can't get those at the dollar store, but you can get them at Walgreens and Walmart and any of the local pharmacies. You need a couple of bigger bandages. You need a compression bandage. Okay, there are some wounds that you need to put compression on them. They sell specific compression bandages. You can make a compression bandage with a belt, and it makes a compression bandage, but it's not as good as the already created compression bandages. And no, tampons can't be used in a wound. Okay? Tampons cannot be used in a gunshot wound. That's a myth. Myth, myth, myth. You know, all it does is it soaks up the blood. It doesn't stop it. It doesn't compress that. There's no pressure. Okay? It is not for gunshot wounds. You don't have to have, you probably should keep female products in your first aid kit, in your emergency first aid kit, because, you know, you probably should keep some of those. But that is not for wounds. Also, you should keep a tourniquet. Now, a tourniquet is a dangerous thing, but it's better than somebody bleeding out. You need to learn how to use a tourniquet. Tourniquets can cause a foot or a hand or something to be destroyed in just short order. So you need to know how to use a tourniquet, how to apply it. You need to take a class. Take a class. Take a class. Just don't put a tourniquet on somebody and walk off and leave it. It'll be worse than the incident. You need to have some aspirin. And I'm talking about regular aspirin, not, you ought to have ibuprofen and you ought to have Tylenol. But I'm talking about regular old-fashioned aspirin. Aspirin makes the blood thinner. Alright, it makes it slickerier. Somebody having a heart attack, give them a couple of aspirin before you get them to as you get them ready to go to the hospital. Couple of aspirin could make a difference. You need to have some cold medicine and Benadryl. You need to have cold medicine for those times when you're just too sick to go out and get anything. You need to have cold medicine available, several different kinds, depending on your preference. But you also need to have some Benadryl on hand. You need to have an antihistamine. You can never tell when you have a problem. One of the first things you should do if you get a snake bite is take a Benadryl and then go to the hospital. Okay? Benadryl will help with all kinds of reactions, whether it's reactions to chemicals, reactions to poison ivy, reactions to snake bites. Benadryl can help with a whole lot of things. Take a class. Of course, antiseptics I said, but there are other antiseptics. There are a lot of antiseptics that store in these little these little glass vials or plastic vials, and you pop them, and immediately you have anesthetic. It's generally a mercurochrome or a methylate of some kind, and you can put it on a cut or a wound, and it's an antiseptic, and it lasts for a long time. We always used mercurochrome as a kid. You could bark a knuckle, and you put a little mercurochrome on it, and that knuckle didn't get stiff. It didn't hurt to move it later. Otherwise, it was stiff and sore, and it hurt to move it. But you put some mercurochrome on it, and it don't do that. Let's see, what else? You need splints of some kind. Just some 3-foot long pieces of board, 2 inches wide, are perfect for splints. You can use a stick if you have to, but for the most part, sticks are not good splints, but you can use them in a pinch. But you're better off if you have some cut boards already waiting for that purpose, about 3 feet long. Ointments. There are a lot of ointments out there. Crystal makes ointments that we use all the time. Ointments for arthritis and ointments for cuts and bruises and wounds, and we have ointments for that. You should have some in your first aid kit. Triple antibiotic ointment is probably one of the best ointments you could have in there. In a situation where there wasn't medical care available for a while, then an ointment like triple antibiotic might be your saving grace. So always have a tube of that available in your first aid kit. One of the other things is you need to have the stuff available to wash a wound. Well, one of the best things you can do is get those little bars of ivory soap like they have in the hotels, that's pre-wrapped, or go over to the dollar store and buy you a bar of ivory soap. Ivory soap's 99.9% soap. It's not a whole lot of additives. It's not a lot of perfumes. It's not all that, so nobody should be allergic to it. It's just soap, and it's good for cleaning wounds. You can use that. One of the best things you ever done was buy a can of pressurized wound wash. Okay? Some pressurized wound wash. If you're going to wash a wound and you don't have any of that available, boiled sterile water is great for washing a wound. So you need to have access to water. So keep water available on your homestead that's sterile. You can buy water over at the dollar store in the water bottles, the little water bottles. Okay, keep a 6-pack of those just for washing wounds. That's a wonderful thing to clean a wound off with. And if you're worried that you've kept it too long and it's got built up stuff in it, put it in a pot and boil it. Then you know it's okay to wash a wound in. A blanket. Now, around our house, when we're going to be in the house, we have blankets. We have plenty of blankets. But I'm talking about one of those emergency blankets. Every car you have should have an emergency blanket and a flashlight in it. Okay? Turn the batteries around backwards so that the flashlight doesn't come on. So when you need the flashlight, you can open it up, turn the batteries around right, and you've always got a fresh set of batteries in your flashlight in your vehicle. So keep a flashlight in your vehicle and a blanket. You never know what's going to happen. I always keep a box of Band-Aids in my vehicle too. Gloves. You need to have rubber gloves. You never know what you're going to come up on what's going to happen on your homestead, and you need to be able to protect yourself or have somebody else protect themselves from you. You know, you may be sick, and they don't need to be handling your snotty rags with their bare hands, or else they're going to wind up sick. So better off if you've got a set of gloves. If you're working on a wound, you want to have sterile gloves. You don't want, and they don't have to be sterile gloves. You can buy regular gloves, wash them in alcohol, okay, and you got sterile gloves all at once. They're not totally sterile, but they probably won't give somebody a wound infection. So you need rubber gloves. So a pack of rubber gloves is important in your first aid kit. Tweezers. You need a little set of tweezers in a readily available first aid kit. Now keep your kit in a place that's the same all the time. Okay, it could be as simple as a drawer in the house, but all of your stuff is stacked in there, and only your first aid stuff goes in there. Okay, that's important because you need to be able to lay your hands on it in a hurry. So have a place for your first aid kit. Hydrocortisone cream. Hydrocortisone cream is good for rashes and things like that, poison ivy. So you need to have some hydrocortisone cream. It wouldn't hurt to have a little of the I can't think of the name of it, but it's pink, and it's for poison vine and rashes. It's good stuff. They sell it at the dollar store. It's cheap. It's good stuff. You need to have some antacids, and you need to have some anti-gas stuff in your first aid kit. There's nothing wrong with having that stuff there. Now, one of the best things you ever did for yourself in case of an emergency, I know we're all tied to that. Okay, we've all got these phones in our pockets and we're leashed to them, but what happens if the phones are out? This phone is out. Well, all you've got to call is your house phone, or you've got to borrow a phone from a neighbor, or your phone's tore up, and okay, all the contacts in your phone you should have written down on paper and put in your wallet. Okay, that's one of the most important things. You know, emergency numbers like the hospital, the ambulance. Of course, 911 is wonderful, but in rural America, not everybody has 911. You know, when I was a kid, the ambulance service was run by the local funeral home. You had to call the funeral home to get an ambulance. You know, so some rural areas are still that way. Some rural areas, your ambulance won't come up your county, up your private driveway, which may be a mile long for some people. Okay, ambulances are not allowed to get off the county road more than 100 feet. Does that make sense? So you got to be prepared for those kinds of things. You should have a phone charger in your first aid kit. And I'm talking about one of those universal things that you could charge any kind of phone with. You could charge your computer with it. You could charge your phone. You could charge whatever. Have that in your first aid kit. They're cheap, $5, $10. You can buy one, and it's in your first aid kit. And then all you got to have is the cable that goes to your phone, and it plugs right into that port. Have the battery one. Okay, there are those that are in with batteries. I keep one in my truck and one in my car, and they're always plugged in to my truck or car. That way that battery is always charged up. Okay, it's always charged up. After a couple years, you got to throw them things away. They only cost about $10, so it's not a big deal. So keep a couple of those, and keep some cold packs. You can buy these cold packs that automatically you crush them, and you can use them as a cold pack. Keep some of those in your first aid kit. That's something great for a sprain or an injury to an elbow, to keep down that swelling. Okay, so keep those. Learn how to use them. They can damage the skin. Learn how to use them. Take a class. Take a class. Take a class. That's one of the most important things I could tell you, is to take a class on community first aid and safety. Okay, a first aid kit is very important. All the things I've mentioned there, make sure that you have them available on your homestead and in easy access. We have a shelf that has all of our first aid stuff on it. Okay, it's a big shelf because there's a lot of first aid stuff. Now, I would tell you to get an AED. I would love to have an AED, but they're anywhere between $500 and $2,000, $500 and $2,000, and I don't have an AED. An AED is wonderful. One of the things you need to learn is CPR, and CPR, an AED allows you to shock someone whose rhythm is out of rhythm. What they show on TV, they'll show somebody flatlining and then they shock them. That's bullsugar. If a person is flatlining, an AED will not fire because there's no rhythm to shock. You have to continue CPR. So CPR has to continue as long as there's no pulse. Okay? CPR has to continue as long as there's no pulse. TV CPR and TV AEDs are bullsugar. Don't pay no attention to them. Take a class. It's one of the best things you could do for you and your family. Now, if you like this stuff, this homesteading, do-it-yourself kind of thing, be certain to come on out to the channel and subscribe. We do this homesteading stuff all the time, sometimes once, sometimes 5 videos. Just depends on what's going on in the homestead that week. Now, if you hit the little bell, it'll notify you when we upload a video. We upload on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, but lately we're only uploading on Saturday and Sunday. So, it's just the way it is. Love you all.